Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, digital fund transfers are turning cheaper fast. RCBC, GCash, Maya, and Land Bank are the latest to scrap or reduce InstaPay transfer fees after BPI. Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona says more banks will announce zero transfer fees soon. Lito Villanueva, EVP and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer at RCPC, joins us live. Analysts see Philippine inflation likely eased in June with a median estimate of 6.6%. And the Senate begins the impeachment trial for Vice President Sara Duterte this afternoon. The House should investors look at political and economic risks. Emmanuel Noel Leco, President and Chief Economist of Credit Rating and Investor Services Philippines, Inc., and Fellow at Center for People Empowerment and Governance, or CENPEG, joins us live. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas expects more banks and e-wallets to lower or waive their digital transfer fees. This follows a BSP circular requiring financial institutions to adopt reasonable, fair, and market-based pricing for individual digital transactions. In response, several financial institutions have already started adjusting their fees. GCash has reduced its InstaPay fee to 10 pesos. Starting today, Maya will also lower its InstaPay fee to 10 pesos, while PesoNet transfers remain free. BPI was the first to permanently waive InstaPay and PesoNet fees following the circular. RCBC has since joined in, offering 30 free InstaPay transfers each month. BSP Governor Eli Remolona said more financial institutions are expected to follow. For bank customers in the Philippines, digital fund transfers are getting cheaper fast. After BPI scrapped all interbank transfer fees on July 1st, RCBC is now making InstaPay transfers free with conditions, while Maya and GCash have lowered their transfer fees to 10 pesos as of July 4 as well. In addition, Land Bank has partially let go of transaction fees. It has waived certain government-related digital payment fees and cut, but not fully eliminated InstaPay transfer charges. All these as regulators push banks to speed up cashless transaction adoption among domestic businesses. BSP Circular Number 1238 Series 2026 is a landmark BSP directive issued on June 17 this year, mandating fair, transparent, and market-based pricing for electronic fund transfers. The circular lifts a long-standing pricing moratorium on the InstaPay and Peso networks. With us for more is RCBC Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer, Lito Villanueva. It's good hearing from you again, Lito. Welcome back to the program.
Nice to see you again, Cathy, and thank you for having me.
All right, so RCBC's just made InstaPay transfers free starting last Saturday, July 4th. So how is customer intake or uptake looking so far?
Well, the good news, Cathy, is that what we've seen is that the 10% increase after one day after the start of our free InstaPay since the time that we announced it last Friday.
Okay, so what kind of transactions did you see, that 10% jump over the last 48 hours?
That is really purely InstaPay transfers, and that's why we are very encouraged since that, this is actually part of our support to the BSP in terms of having to ensure more Filipinos will be able to adopt to digital payments.
Okay, but as I understand, these come with conditions, Lito. I mean, how many transactions per customer are free, and what is the minimum amount?
Okay, so as you know, Cathy, we have two mobile apps. First is the RCBC Pulse that calls for a cap of 30 transactions per month and a minimum transaction amount of 100 pesos. This is based on empirical data. So, in fact, our data science would tell us, based on transaction behavior of our customers, 99% of RCBC Pulse customers would normally have less than 30 transfers per month, and the average transfer amount is about 7,000 pesos. So that is really based on data, Cathy. And on the other hand, for this Cartec, that is practically unlimited transfers for all our this Cartec users.
All right, but the move comes 3 days after BPI scrapped transfer fees entirely for the interbank transactions via InstaPay and PesoNet. Did you move up your timeline because of BPI's move?
No, it's really more about our push for more innovation, for more customers to adopt the digital payments. Because as you may know, Cathy, of course, cost would be a barrier to entry or adoption for most Filipinos. So it's really more about having to ensure that it's not about just compliance. It's really more about us having to provide, disincentives, for our loyal customers. And in fact, this will definitely be beneficial for RCBC, given that we have seen the exponential growth of InstaPay transactions across the board, across the entire industry.
So given that, are you going to be scrapping transfer fees on PesoNet anytime soon?
Well, as I said, we started this last Saturday, so it's free for initial 30 transactions per month with a minimum of 100 pesos. And for this Cartec, it's unlimited.
Well, when are you going to remove the 30 transactions per month?
It will really, because remember, Cathy, it would really depend on the transaction velocity. We are looking at, say, 1 to 2 weeks in terms of having to check whether there is an uptake in terms of more transactions that they would normally do. But based on our data right now, it only says that 99% of our customers would normally transfer less than 30 times per month.
So does that appear like you will be letting go of the transfer fees for PesoNet given the velocity you've seen over the last 48 hours?
Yeah, well, we'll see first on InstaPay whether that will transcend to them having to transition to PesoNet. Because remember, InstaPay would be low value at a max of 50,000 per transfer in real time, but PesoNet would be a higher value, but based on a batch transaction. So, but we'll see first on InstaPay, and eventually we'll move to PesoNet.
All right, let's talk a bit about behavior change, as you mentioned earlier. Could you just give one concrete example, say a sari-sari store owner using RCBC today, on what they were paying before versus what they'll be paying now with those transfer fee frees?
Yes, just imagine, Cathy, before RCBC Pulse would charge 10 pesos per transfer. And if you have 30 transactions per month, that would be 300 pesos of savings back to the customer. So if you have a sari-sari store, so imagine having to save 300 pesos would be part of your fund for more inventory in your store. So that 300 pesos would mean maybe one case of soft drinks that you could sell, or practically 5 or 6 kilos of rice that you could also sell. So this definitely goes back to the benefit of our sari-sari store or even our customers in general.
All right, let's take the example, for instance, for remittance-reliant families or maybe even gig workers. What is the benefit of this?
Well, that again, they could send as many, as frequent as they would want now to their loved ones in the Philippines, and their loved ones who are receiving the remittances or the funds from their family members overseas would now be able to again save those supposed transaction fees. And the good thing here is that without them having to transact 1 or 2 times only, they could transact as many times as they could without having to worry about transaction fees. Because as you know, Cathy, the best innovation would always be the way by which Filipinos would normally use it on an everyday life, right? So the best innovation is the one that you should use for every day.
And also use responsibly. I mean, there is the propensity for maybe scams. So how are you making sure they also understand the risks from scams to overspending as everything becomes more frictionless?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. No? As a BSFI, as a regulated entity, we are also obliged because we have our shareholders. We are a publicly listed company. We have to make sure that we have undergone risk management and also prudent in terms of having to execute all our business models. So in this particular case, we all know for a fact that there's still the proliferation of scammers and fraudsters. And, imagine if you are to make it, unlimited, for example, some fraudsters may just send 1 peso unlimited times or multiple times, right? And that is practically cost to the bank. Remember, the cost here is on a per transaction basis. Imagine a fraudster sending 1 peso per transfer multiple times, and that would be, detrimental to the bank, right? So that's why we have to make sure that we protect ourselves from fraudsters and scammers, and that's why financial awareness is key to this cyber fraud, criminal act.
But from a business standpoint, Lito, waiving transfer fees also means giving visible revenue lines. So how do you make this sustainable? Do you recover through the higher volumes or cross-selling other products or introducing efficiencies in digital operations?
Yeah, definitely this will be cost the bank in terms of foregone revenues, but we are not looking at that that landscape anymore because you could do cross-selling, upselling, and this definitely would further enhance or strengthen the value proposition in terms of customer experience and customer loyalty, right? Because at the end of the day, you could do a lot in terms of having to increase transaction velocity and strengthen and further expand the customer relationship or business relationship with your customers.
Got that. Interesting times for the banking industry. Thank you so much for your insights, Lito Villanueva of RCBC. In other news, the Philippines has secured $2.5 billion in investment pledges following President Bongbong Marcos's official visit to Vancouver, Canada. The investment pledges cover the mining, critical minerals, energy services, and IT BPM sectors. Also during the visit, President Marcos and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney elevated Philippines-Canada ties to a strategic partnership. Both leaders also committed to conclude a Philippines-Canada Free Trade Agreement this year, while negotiations on the ASEAN-Canada Free Trade Agreement continue. 4 cooperation agreements were also signed covering critical minerals and energy, labor and migration, tourism, and people-to-people and cultural exchanges. President Marcos and the Philippine delegation returned to Manila on Sunday afternoon.
Tunay na naging matagumpay ang ating biyahe kung saan napagsaayunan natin ang ilang mga inisyatibo sa hanay ng gobyerno at ng pribadong sektor. Hard work, though, does not end here. Patuloy tayong magsisikap upang ang ating nakamit at nasimulan sa Canada ay yayabong at madarama ng mas nakakaraming Pilipino.
Prices at the pump are expected to rise this week. The Department of Energy says based on 4 days of trading at the Bean of Platts, Singapore, gasoline may rise or fall by 1 peso and 50 centavos per liter, and diesel and kerosene may go up between 8 peso and 3 pesos per liter. Final price adjustments for tomorrow are expected to be announced today. DOE Oil Industry Management Bureau Director Rino Abad said oil prices in the world market remain volatile amid uncertainty surrounding the U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement. Meantime, preliminary figures from Meralco show higher energy sales in the second quarter, driven by greater use of cooling appliances due to the summer heat, which was intensified by El Nino. Meralco Head of Customer Relations and Services, Charina Padua, said energy sales rose by 0.6% year-on-year to 14,495 gigawatt hours. Overseas, OPEC Plus will raise production output in August by 188,000 barrels. OPEC Plus has been raising output since April, despite the closure of the Hormuz Strait that unleashed the greatest energy crisis in history, which means these increases are largely on paper. Global oil prices edged down as of 8:30 p.m. a.m. Philippine time. Brent crude trading at $71 a barrel, down 0.4%. And West Texas Intermediate sitting at $68 a barrel, down 0.2%. You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, how should investors look at political and economic risks with Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial happening this afternoon? We speak with Emmanuel Noel Leco, the President and Chief Economist, Credit Rating and Services Philippines. And we check in on the situation at the Senate and what to expect this afternoon from our mobile journalist, Merimon Reyes. Keep it here on One News. Ano na? I see, hindi na pwede. Okay, that's all right. Yes, Marymon, welcome back. Cathy here.
Good morning,
Marymon, I
Miss
hope you can hear me.
Cathy.
Yes, so we'll take you first and then an update lang. Everything all right there so far? Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. All eyes on the Senate as final preparations continue ahead of the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. For the latest, we go live to our mobile journalist, Merimon Reyes. So how's the situation there ahead of the 2 p.m. proceedings, Merimon?
Cathy, so far it is all systems go for the Senate that is set to reconvene as the impeachment court later in the afternoon. Senate President Sherwin Gatchalian also confirms that he will be presiding over the impeachment trial proceedings, and while he is thanking the presence of Senator Robin Padilla and Senator Loren Legarda, who attended last week's or this weekend's all senators caucus, he is still hoping and encouraging all senators from both the majority, especially the minority bloc, to be present, to attend, and to participate in the trial proceedings. So far, he is also thanking the Office of the Surgeon at Arms alongside the cooperation from the PNP, the Comprehensive Security Unit within the Senate premises, because when it comes to the impeachment trial proceedings, plus the heightened security alert, everyone should be on, everything is in high stakes, especially the safety and the security of everyone within and outside the Senate premises. So far, there are no communication yet from the from the side of the Office of the Vice President indicating that the VP or VP Sara Duterte will be attending in person, or as an option will be her presence will be through her legal counsel or her defense team. So far, we're yet to see any of the senator judges nor the House Prosecution Panel or the defense team, pero mamaya makikita natin sila bandang tanghali. Cathy.
Okay, we'll be keeping up to speed on that. Salamat for the update, our mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Stay tuned to One News for our special coverage of VP Duterte's impeachment trial at 2 p.m. Shortly. And the Vice President facing 4 articles of impeachment, from misuse of confidential funds to unexplained wealth. How should investors look at the political and economic risks? With us for more is Emmanuel Noel Leco, the President and Chief Economist, Credit Rating and Investor Services Philippines, Inc., and Fellow, Center for People Empowerment in Governance, or CENPEG. It's good seeing you again, Noel. Welcome back to the program.
Glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
All right, so from a sovereign and institutional risk lens, is the impeachment trial going to be a sign of democratic stress, or is it just going to be a test of the normal checks and balances that we normally see when it comes to accountability?
Well, normally, impeachment proceedings are not part of the regular process of legislature or government. However, it's great that we have this impeachment so that it can provide the checks and balance. If somebody violates good governance, at least the people will be able to resort to impeachment. However, if we are impeaching somebody, if we're impeaching government officials every term, I don't think that is good. But it's great that we have the impeachment right now, and so this is quite historic.
I'm going to pick up on the not so good part and the way that it impacts risk. How then can investors reprice or a certain risk at this point if it's not the normal part of anybody's just observing what goes on?
Well, having the impeachment proceedings is part of a democratic governance. However, having it on a regular basis is not good. So investors will be stepping back and see if the one being impeached, the one being tried is guilty, and how much would it cost the economy? How much has been stolen, or what kind of violations were created or committed by the impeached official.
But what is regular anyway? I mean, the regularity you just mentioned about the impeachment, and what can we learn from these moments? Because as we've seen from the equity markets, it does respond sharply, but very briefly. So in terms of that regularity, the equity volatility pattern, what have you seen in these past instances?
Well, in the near term, equities and even bond markets will also react. Definitely, especially now that there seems to be a clustering of accountability procedures right now. There is still the ongoing investigation by the Ombudsman, of course, these impeachment proceedings at the Senate, and the former president is being held in ICC, being held for his accountability in that EJK during his term. So for the Philippines, I don't think it is normal, or it is something that we should always expect. Perhaps, like I said, it's great that we had impeachment as a resort that we can go to if something goes wrong. However, the clustering is not exactly preferable. We have the impeachment, we have the Ombudsman, and we have the ICC. And these are high officials that are being held and tried for their accountability.
Given the
major
clustering
crimes.
that you're seeing and the repetitive mentions of maybe banking receipts, let's say for the impeachment trial, what impact do you think that might have on confidence when it comes to banking stocks, maybe even deposits, if indeed we get more shocking information regarding banking receipts?
Well, remember, this involves money. Some questions will be raised here. The impeachment case, actually, we already heard. This is involving billions of pesos. Now, there will be questions. How are these billions of pesos being handled? And we heard that these are being handled in cash. They're being put in luggages and being delivered in armored trucks inside where luggages. So there seems to be a question. How are these monies, this cash, being handled? How can they be taken out of the banking system and not hearing anybody raising red flags? But technically, we have a very strict system here. We have a very stringent procedure policy that if you withdraw so much cash, you will already be flagged. But this time, we're hearing billions of pesos, and it's only now that we're hearing about it.
So could confidence be derailed in the banking industry?
Well, definitely, I think this will have some implications on the banking industry, particularly handling cash. If our banking system is strict enough, like it is said, no, billions of pesos in cash being taken out and being distributed. I think that is quite anomalous.
For foreign investors holding Philippine sovereigns, what do you think should be the specific indicators that they should monitor?
I think they should look at the intensity of the crimes being alleged and see if this will create any stability or disruptions in the economic system. In our, well, basically, foreign investors are coming in mostly, like the hot money portfolio. They can come in and out, come in the morning, get out in the afternoon or midday. But the foreign direct investments will be mostly affected because this is they are going to stay here not just for a few days, but they will be staying here for a few years. Remember, they're investing in infrastructure. So if they see that there's so much widespread corruption in government, so much corruption in the system, and even the financial system is being questioned, particularly the movement of money. I think that is the major question here now. How can trillions of pesos, billions of pesos be moved around without the banking system able to detect?
Okay, thank you so much for your perspectives, Noel. Well ahead of the impeachment trial at the Senate, with our special coverage coming in at 1 p.m. Philippine time. Let's take a quick check on the Philippine peso. It opens Monday weaker, 61.50 to the dollar. The peso is expected to move sideways this week ahead of the June inflation release. On Friday, the local unit strengthened by 15 centavos to close at 61.415 against the greenback. The peso was supported by the dollar's drop after weaker than forecast U.S. non-farm payrolls data, easing expectations of a rate hike. And checking in on the markets overseas, Asian markets are mixed this Monday as investors rethink AI-driven plays. South Korea's Kospi climbs nearly 1.4%, Japan's Nikkei 225 sheds a third of 1%, and Australia's ASX 200 slides a tenth of 1%. And analysts see the local bourse maintaining its positive momentum this week. The benchmark PSEI Friday gained 62 points, or 1% to close at 6,188. Week on week, the PSEI rose 1.9%, driven by lower oil prices and the country's transition into upper middle income status. And before we go, Filipino tennis star Alex Ayala now sets her sights on the Wimbledon quarterfinals. The 21-year-old will next face Italy's Jasmine Paolini in the round of 16 tonight. This comes after Ayala pulled off a stunning win over defending champion Iga Swiatek of Poland on Saturday. With that victory, Ayala became the first Filipino to reach the fourth round of Wimbledon. Way to go, Alex. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Join Edwin Gao and Regina Lay at 1 p.m. for our special coverage of the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Catch Money Talks again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have a great day ahead.